Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm Warner with Employer Outreach, part of Career Services here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a full crowd today. Many people registered for this event. So we're going to go into this event in about the next 60 seconds. So waiting for everybody to log in. As fun, since we're talking about the National Park Service and all kinds of things today with Milo, our great friend and amazing recruiter for the Department of the Interior. Do me a favor, while we're waiting in the chat, throw down where you've been. What national parks have you visited? Where do you think you might visit at the end before the end of the year? Or where would you like to go and check it out? So yeah, it's just amazing national parks across the U.S. We're not going to talk just about the National Park Service, but let's see where people have been. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for attending UAGC. We'll get started in just about 30 seconds. Hi, everybody. I'm Warner with Employer Outreach at the University of Arizona Global Campus, Career Services. Thank you for being here. We're going to get started here, and we're going to cover a few things. Thank you so much for attending this amazing session with the U.S. Department of the Interior. We're so excited to talk to Milo today. And then, of course, there's 11 government agencies, federal agencies represented today. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go over some things that we want to talk about here before we get started. So first of all, thank you again for being here. And then I wanted to let you know, first of all, I'm Warner Petzold again. I just mentioned I'm Employer Outreach Specialist at the University of Arizona Global Campus, and I'm a 10-year U.S. Air Force veteran. We are excited that you could join us today to learn about the exciting career opportunities with the U.S. Department of the Interior. Before I turn over the floor to Milo, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. For all those who registered for today's information session, the recording will be emailed to you in a few days. We will take the time to answer as many questions as possible during and at the end of the presentation. At the bottom of the screen is a Q&A button. You can submit questions with your name or anonymously to be answered live. We will do our best to get to as many questions as we can. There's a lot of you here today, so not sure if we're going to be able to get to every single question. However, if your question is not answered by the end of the presentation, you can email it to Career Services. That's both words mashed together. There's no dots, spaces, or anything in between. At the @ symbol uagc.edu, and we will follow up with the U.S. Department of the Interior to get any remaining questions answered. Also, feel free to engage in the chat. You can pose questions in the chat, and members of the Career Services team will be available to help answer questions throughout the presentation. If you have any technical difficulties, we recommend logging out of Zoom and logging back in. Now, I would like to introduce our guest employer. Joining us today is Milo Espinoza Davis, Human Resources Specialist at the U.S. Department of the Interior. Milo has been with us for many years. He's a very close friend of our career services, and we're just so privileged to have him today. So thank you again, Milo, for being here. We're excited to hear your presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Awesome, Werner. I appreciate that. Just want to make sure, can you hear me good, Werner?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, your
Perfect.
microphone kicked in now, so that's really
Okay.
great. That's awesome.
Awesome. Very good. Well, I appreciate it. So again, welcome everybody. My name is Milo. We're going to go through about 32 slides today. I'm going to try to keep those slides as engaging as possible. This first slide is going to say that we're going to go into an introduction on the USA jobs and understanding the federal hiring process. Many of you probably already know that if you're going to apply for a federal job, it's going to take more than an hour on a PowerPoint presentation to really deep dive it. So at the end of this presentation, you will have my contact information. You'll have my LinkedIn information. So if you want to connect on LinkedIn, I always try to set aside time to meet with individuals, whether it's a 30-minute coffee chat to kind of really go into what the process entails, and answer any individual questions that someone may have. So with that being said, let's kind of get started. We've got an hour, a little bit less than an hour to go through this, but we're going to go through an agenda that's going to contribute to, we're going to gain an understanding of the Department of Interior as a whole. We're going to shift into three individual agencies that I support, which is the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and the newly formed U.S. Federal Wildland Fire Service. Secondly, we're going to discuss some careers within the Department of Interior. We're more than just wildland firefighters and park rangers. And lastly, we're going to take a deep dive into the application process. We'll talk about what happens when you create a USA Jobs profile. And what a lot of people want to know is what happens behind the scenes after you apply. During the presentation, if I have a brain fart and I use an acronym, or if I use an unfamiliar term for a job, please put the question in the chat block. We'll try to get it answered for you as quickly and as best as we can. So I don't have a penny jar, so I'm not going to put a penny every time I use an acronym. Werner, you probably remember that from our days at recruiting for the Air Force. But yeah, we'll get it rolling. So a little bit about me. My name is Milo Espinosa Davis. I was born and raised in a really small town called Buell, Idaho. I don't know if anyone knows where Buell is, but it's in the south central part of Idaho. I have a bachelor's degree in outdoor recreation and sports management. I have a master's degree in recreation management, and I've got a few certificates within human resources. My career journey, when I was young, I never said to myself, man, I really want to work for the Department of Interior as a human resources specialist when I grow up. It wasn't even on my radar. I come from a farming and a ranching family, so I always had a deep connection with the land, the preservation and the protection thereof. I've always had a great relationship with the Department of Interior, specifically Bureau of Reclamation for water and BLM for land use. I was a student. I tried college. It was not for me at the time. I was young, didn't know what I wanted to do. So I joined the military. I tried to join the military thinking to myself, I'm going to do this for 4 years. I'm going to get some money for school, and then I'm going to go ahead and come back home and get into the workforce. Well, 25 years later, I had a great career in the Air Force, and I decided to retire about 5 years ago. And at that time, I went through the process like many of you are, getting some education things knocked out, applying for federal jobs. I went through and I got turned down 71 times in my application journey with the federal government, until I finally reached out to someone like myself who took the time to guide me through the process. And on the 72nd attempt, I actually made it through and got to speak to a hiring manager and ultimately got hired into a job as a human resources specialist with the Bureau of Land Management. The Department of Interior is a large department. Oftentimes, we're referred to as the Department of Everything just because we do so much. And when you talk about natural resource and cultural resources, there's just so many to talk about. But what the Department of Interior does is we work with federal, state, tribal, and community-based agencies to preserve and protect the nation's cultural resources. If you can think of everything from the western slope of Alaska all the way past the eastern seaboard to the Virgin Islands, Point Udall. That's the easternmost point that the Department of Interior manages. So as you can see on this upcoming map, we manage a lot. The department really, I'm going to focus on three areas, the areas that I handle, but the department focuses on three areas. That's to protect and manage the nation's cultural and natural resources, to provide scientific information about those resources, and to honor its trust and responsibilities with Native and island communities. The Department of Interior is comprised of 11 bureaus. The department has approximately 80,000 employees, close to 300,000 volunteers, and about 2,500 operating locations throughout the United States. We're going to go into careers here in a little bit, but I want everyone to know that there are a lot of STEM positions within the Department of Interior, but there are also a lot of support roles like teachers, law enforcement, IT specialists, people like me, human resources people, public affairs, journalism. There's so many jobs that this department consists of that I promise you, if preserving and protecting our public lands and our natural and cultural resources is important to you, we have a position for you. And we're going to go into that here in a little bit. One of the agencies that I cover, like I said, I cover three, is the National Park Service. And the National Park Service is a bureau within the U.S. Department of Interior whose main headquarters is in Washington, D.C. The National Park Service protects America's most treasured places, and it preserves our shared cultural and natural resources across the United States. Some of the national parks that a lot of people think of might be the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee and North Carolina. A lot of people think of Zion National Park down in Utah, which I'll be there actually next week. A lot of people know of Grand Canyon in Arizona. A lot of people know of Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming and Montana, and Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. One of the most beautiful national parks that I've been to is Volcanoes National Park on the Big Island of Hawaii, which unfortunately just was hit with a pretty bad hurricane. But Volcanoes National Park is such a beautiful space. If you have the chance, and I'm interested to see some of the chats of where people have been or where they want to go, put some of these spots on your map of where you want to go. The second agency that I support is the Bureau of Land Management, also known as the BLM. And the BLM was created back in 1946 when there was a merger between the General Land Office and the U.S. Grazing Service. Those two services were merged under Department of Interior, and that is where the BLM came to be. The BLM really focuses in the 12 to 13 Western states, but the Bureau of Land Management manages approximately 245 million acres of public land, balancing conservation, recreation, and responsible use to those natural and cultural resources. The BLM is also known as America's backyard. So this is the land where a lot of people use for hiking, backpacking, camping, fishing, riding your horses, hunting, boating, rock climbing, going out on your four-wheelers, or if you enjoy the quiet parts as well, wildlife viewing, photography, stargazing, and then winter recreation. The BLM is who I worked for prior to working for the Department of Interior. And that agency holds a very special place in my heart because, as I said earlier, coming from a farming and a ranching background, the BLM is who we had probably the closest relationship with. Established in 2026, January of 2026, the U.S. Wildland Fire Service represents really a historic moderation within the Department of Interior. The Federal Wildland Fire Service protects the lives and communities, restores landscapes, and delivers unified national wildfire leadership across the entire United States. They do this in a safe and professional way, and they break this down through the different regions across the United States. This is a new agency. A lot of people don't really know much about this agency yet, but the hope and the intent of this new agency is to improve federal partnerships with communities with regards to wildland fire, improve wildland fire research, and supporting the wildland fire workforce. I don't know if any of you have or live in areas. I'm here in Idaho, and we've had a very smoky start to the end of summer. Usually, wildfire season for us doesn't start until the end of August, beginning of September, but it started about a month ago and it's been very, very smoky and hot here recently. But our wildland firefighters work very, very, very hard. And the intent of this Wildland Fire Service is to really support that wildland fire workforce. There's a QR code on here. If you guys want to snap that, feel free. But the Department of Interior offers careers that help protect America's natural resources, preserve public lands, and our cultural heritage. We support tribal communities, manage water, wildlife, and provide outdoor recreation opportunities. Careers can range from wildland firefighters to park rangers to biologists to geologists and engineers when we start looking at a lot of those STEM fields. But when you look at the support roles as well, we have law enforcement rangers. We have teachers and environmental educators. We have IT specialists because people have to keep our GIS programs and our computers working. And we have human resources as well and a lot of other roles. If, like I said earlier, if protecting America's natural and cultural resources is something that motivates you, the Department of Interior is a great place to start your career. I do have a video here that I would like to show. And Warner, if you would maybe just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I want to make sure that this video plays and the volume is good on this. So I'm going to start it.
We have a visual but no volume. I think there's like a button you have to push on the more area. If you go in the more area, I think.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is because this video is good, but this video can take up a little bit of time. So I'll just go ahead and save this to the end, or I
Okay.
can share it afterwards. But I want to make sure we have time to answer questions. So I'll go ahead and go here.
And just
So,
letting you know, Milo, just letting you know that video we actually sent out in a promotion for they have it in their emails for the people
oh,
that
perfect.
registered. So who I think it's
Awesome.
like Work for Us is called
It
is the
is. Yeah, it's worked for
yeah,
us. Yep.
it's
And
a
it just
really good one. I
showcases.
recommend that
Okay.
everyone listen to it. I'll back to you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Werner. I appreciate that. So when we look at some of the hiring needs, just within the last probably 2.5 to 3 months, we've had several hiring events that we've been a part of. A lot of them have been with the Bureau of Land Management and the USGS, Bureau of Reclamation, some of these other agencies. Um, I've been to Alaska within the last month and a half. I've been to Wyoming. I've been to Utah. I am probably going to be going to California here in about a month and a half to 2 months. But when you look at some of the available positions that we're going to start seeing come down the pike, you're going to see a lot of those STEM roles that we talked about. So your botany positions, your rangeland management folks that deal with livestock and grazing, your geologists, your land surveyors. But then you're going to start seeing some of these other roles. And these roles don't require a specific educational requirement oftentimes to get into because they're a little bit more support in nature. And they're really just looking for the right person with some great skills to bring to the team. And those are going to include your environmental coordinators or your environmental educators, your realty specialist roles. Believe it or not, petroleum accountability technicians, administrative support positions, maintenance, park rangers, records information, budget, and many, many more roles. So if you were to log into doi.usajobs.gov right now, you'll notice that there are close to 350 available roles that are open right this minute. Now, mind you, USA Jobs is a living system. So if you were to log in, it might be 345, it might be 355. It's always changing just based on the amount of jobs that are opening and closing. But about an hour ago when I hopped in there were about 350 open roles across the United States from the western slope of Alaska all the way to the beaches of Florida. And those jobs consist of everything from petroleum engineers to park rangers and everything in between. So we've got something for everyone. Now we're going to get into the part where we talk about USA jobs. And this is the part that really a lot of people have a lot of questions on. So I'm going to go through it. I'm going to do as best as I can to deep dive it. But please, at the very end of this presentation, take down my email address, join our talent network, and connect with me on LinkedIn because this is where we can have those one-on-one conversations about USA jobs and your specific profile inputs on USA jobs to make you the most competitive. So USA Jobs is a landing page or a home page, and this is where everything starts when we're thinking about working for the federal government. The QR code that you see on the screen will take you directly to our page if you'd like to follow along with anything that I talk about in the next few minutes. The first item in this section is going to say learn more about the federal hiring process. You can click to expand that section to reveal what the process actually consists of. It's all here with a brief explanation of each step. The next part that you're going to be able to see is what jobs that you can apply for. You can click on each specific hiring path, and it's important to know what jobs that you apply for and what jobs you're actually eligible to apply for. And I'll go into that here in a few minutes as well. You're going to want to take a look at all the paths that are available. And because you might not realize, but you might be eligible for multiple hiring paths. For example, you might be a veteran, but you might also be a military spouse. You might be a family member of a disabled veteran. You might be there's so many different hiring paths that are out there. We'll go into those, but again, reach out to me specifically if you have any questions on your unique situation. Many of these trainings that you're getting today, you can actually find on USA Jobs as well. There's going to be an event section, and many agencies will actually host specific workshops within USA Jobs. And a lot of them are going to be specific towards their agency. And the reason why is because they have a need to hire right now. They have a need to fill positions. So if they're hosting a workshop or a hiring event, it's not because we're just looking to fill time during our day. We actually have positions that we need to fill, and we're looking for people to apply for these roles, and we want to help you get through the process. Again, it took me 72 times before I finally got hired, and I'm here to try to help if I can. Now we're going to deep dive into the federal hiring process, and the first step is to create a USA Jobs profile. You'll need to create a secure password protected account through login.gov. After you complete your basic contact information, you'll be able to add your hiring paths to each of them so that when you log in, you'll be directed to positions that are specifically available for you that you're eligible to apply for. What you're going to do then is, and I'll foot stomp this, you're going to add your work experience, and your work experience will become your resume. This is the easiest way within USA Jobs to create a federal resume. The federal resumes in USA Jobs are the most easily digestible resumes that we as human resources specialists want to see. So create a resume in USA Jobs, use the tool. Make it easy on yourself. Let the system work for you. Using this format, again, allows the review team to qualify you for a position. And this is just a tip that I always try to tell people, especially students, whether they're early on in their career or if they're a little bit older in their student journey. Be sure to add any volunteer work that you have because it can actually count for relevant work experience for job application, but it can also show that HR specialist and the hiring manager about your character. So make sure to put any volunteer experience on your resume. Then what we're going to look at now is the positions and really how do you apply for the positions that you're dreaming of? And these positions might not even be open today, but you're going to want to make sure that your USA Jobs profile is prepared and ready. That way, when the position comes open, you're notified about those roles and you can actually apply and get notified. So you can apply for them and then submit your resume. You're going to want to sign into your profile. And one thing I always say is be realistic about your filters. Go through each one and be specific as possible. For example, if you do not have a degree in civil, mechanical, or petroleum engineering, don't include a filter that says, I want to be notified when all petroleum engineering positions come open, unless there's some other reason out there, but you're not qualified for that job. So if you're not qualified, don't clutter your inbox with filtered information that is not relevant to you. So be as thorough as possible to get that information. As you do this, you'll see your results narrow and the positions are going to be specific to your preferred location, your interest, your experience, and your qualifications. You're going to want to save the search as well to set up notifications for future positions when they become available. The three main questions that I always explain to people is that you should be asking yourself when you see a federal job announcement is, can I apply? Do I want to apply? And am I qualified to apply? Successfully answering those questions will help you apply with confidence and potentially lead to more offers. The first question, can I apply? This answers the question of eligibility, which is our HR term that we use. Every job announcement will tell you who this job is open to. Take a look at all the hiring paths and the icons to know which jobs apply to you. Are you a U.S. citizen? Are you a veteran? Are you a military spouse? Are you a former federal employee? When you see that a position is posted to internal to an agency, you have to be an employee of that agency to be eligible to apply. Sometimes on USA Jobs, if you see a duplicate announcement for the same position, the posting basically will mean it is open externally for external candidates and internally for internal candidates. If you're eligible to apply for both, then you can apply to both. If I am a U.S. citizen and a veteran, I'd be eligible to apply for both of those announcements. Uh, any preference that you have, whether it's veteran preference, any preference that you have will be represented differently on each type of announcement. And again, we'll go into that and having those one-on-one conversations. That's where it gets very important to have those 30-minute coffee chats to go over your specific information. One of the most important steps that we're going to go over again is your hiring paths. Those three questions that I had here. A lot of these icons can get a little bit confusing just because you might see one and you might think, well, yeah, if it's open to the public, I guess everyone can apply. Or if it's open for individuals with disabilities, do I have to be in a wheelchair to specifically apply? This is where it's very important to read into the specific hiring paths that are listed, but then also reach out to me or any federal HR person so they can help you understand what positions you can qualify for specifically, which again will lead to more confidence during your search and hopefully more job offers. There are many non-competitive hiring authorities out there, and this is a question that I get a lot. What is a non-competitive hiring authority? A non-competitive hiring authority essentially means that there's a hiring manager out there who has gotten permission from the Office of Personnel Management to fill a position outside of the USA Jobs application process. That is to say that if I was a veteran and I was a disabled veteran with, say, more than a 30% veterans disability rating, I would have to meet the job requirements, but if I met the job requirements and I qualified for these non-competitive hiring authorities, say I'm a military spouse or something along those lines, the hiring manager can talk to me outside of the USA jobs process to determine if I meet the qualifications and if OPM will allow them to hire me non-competitive. It can get confusing. I don't want to bore you with some of the confusion on the non-competitive hiring authorities, but this is where reaching out to an HR specialist on the back end of this call when you get my contact info, please don't hesitate to reach out. This is what I'm here for. More non-competitive hiring authorities, you have something called Schedule A, which is very important to understand if you qualify for Schedule A. Peace Corps, Land Management Workforce Flexibility Act, Field Unit Local Hiring Authority, which is a brand new non-competitive hiring authority, which basically says if you live in a certain commuting area, certain jobs are only going to be offered to those individuals. So it allows the federal government to hire in rural communities and individuals that are specifically in a location to support the mission. So again, we talk about, do I want to apply? This section is going to cover the announcement. It's going to go over the pay scale. It's going to help you understand the pay. It's going to help you understand, would you be interested in applying for a lower paid position? Would you be interested in applying for an entry level type of role? Or do you think you're qualified for a higher type of role? So this is where you're really going to do a deep dive on yourself to determine, do I want to apply? Is it is it in the location where I want to be? Is it the pay where I need it to be? Is there some promotion potential that could be there that maybe I can come on board entry level into a lower graded position? But you know what? Maybe this job is my dream job and I really want to do it. Or you know what? Maybe there's a career ladder to promotion. That's really what you want to ask yourself. Do you want to apply? Um, you're then going to want to look to see on the qualifications. Am I qualified? If you don't learn anything else today, please remember this. Read all the requirements. And when I do in-person presentations, I always say, repeat after me. Read all requirements. And I usually have folks repeat it like 3 times. While the duty section of the announcement is about the job, the requirements section is about the ideal candidate. And hopefully that makes sense and hopefully that's you. The conditions of employment are usually pretty standard, but there may be some specific things that pertain to the position, and that will be listed here. So if the hiring manager is looking for a specific certification, or if the hiring manager is looking for a specific language needed or something, you're going to want to take a look at those requirements and read all the requirements because I've seen it happen. It happened to me. I look at the qualifications, I look at the duties, I say, I'm qualified for this job. I don't read the requirements. I get past the first hurdle, which is having an HR specialist deem me qualified. I make it to the next position where I actually get to interview for the position, and the individual says, "Hey, you mentioned you had this certification, or you mentioned that you speak this language." And if I can't prove that, um, the hiring manager knows, like, well, they don't meet this requirement. So read all the requirements. Some positions have basic education requirements, such as a degree in a specific field. If you do not meet the basic education requirement, you will not qualify. Likewise, if you fail to submit the transcripts to verify the education, you will not qualify. The qualification section will tell you about the experience and what those hiring managers are looking for. Your federal resume is it, it it it's gotten better because they've allowed us to scale it down to a 2-page resume, which makes it easier for folks who might not have a lot of experience. But say someone who's been in the workforce for 15, 20, 30 years, how are they going to fit everything into a 2-page resume? And this is really where having that one-on-one conversation with myself or another HR specialist is important. Your resume should make it easy for an HR specialist like myself to determine if you're qualified for the specific position. You're going to want to include the level and the complexity of your work. Um, Contrary to popular belief, I thought this as well, but contrary to belief, we don't scan resumes. HR specialists have to read every application. Partly, it's why the hiring process takes so long, but that's part of our merit-based process. We have to physically go through and review these applications as they come in. Keep in mind that HR specialists are not subject matter experts in every single field. So if an occupation that you're applying for, um, you're going to want to use verbiage that is in the job announcement and not verbiage that you've become familiar using as a professional in that field. We process a lot of petroleum engineer applications, and I see a lot of words on there that really don't make a ton of sense to me because I'm not a petroleum engineer. If I take this resume down to one of my petroleum engineer experts and say, hey, does this make sense to you? They look at it and go, oh, yeah, dude, this is what it means. Boom, boom, boom. Like they get it. But the hiring managers and the HR specialists, we have to be on the same page. Use wording and verbiage that the HR specialist is going to be able to understand. You're going to want to list your experience in chronological order with the most recent first, and you're going to want to make sure that you use the amount of time each week that you work into a position. So 40 hours is what we want to see. Um, do not include graphics, do not include photos. Um, and again, if I can say anything, use the resume builder. Use the builder that's in USA Jobs. It makes it so much easier for you to list your experience, and it makes it so much easier for the HR specialist to digest the information as we are receiving it. Federal resumes must include contact information, names, email addresses, phone numbers, relevant work experience, job titles, start and end dates. And again, I'll foot stomp it, the number of hours that you do that job in a week. When relevant, you're going to want to make sure that you include education, certification, and licenses. You're going to want to ensure that you include transcripts. And then there are also some optional fields that you're going to want to make sure that you see in the requirements section that I spoke of earlier. Security clearances, specific job-related training. That might be a CDL or some sort of a driver's license amendment that you qualify for. Language skills, any organizations or affiliations that you belong to, any publications that you have, any hiring eligibilities that you qualify for. Are you a veteran? Are you a military spouse? Are you STEM? And then also any references that the hiring manager can reach out to and contact if you are eligible to move on in that process. I can't tell you how many times we receive resumes and everything looks great. It even has the resume references listed, but then there's no contact information for the references listed. You can put references available or references contact available. You can put that, but I always say err safely and put the references down with their email and phone number contact information. Demonstrate your qualifications, use strong grammar, proofread and spell check, use a clear professional font. And again, when you do it in USA Jobs, when you do it in the resume builder, it's going to help you put all of this stuff down in the manner that we need it. Have a friend read through it, have a coworker read through it, have someone that you can trust with a fresh set of eyes review your resume before you actually submit it. Translate your student, your military, and your volunteer experience into civilian terms. Use specific examples and try to quantify the results whenever possible. Aligning your resume to the job announcement is something that is extremely important. So when you see a position that, for example, as a park ranger, the job announcement requirement will say something to the effect of explaining regulations to park visitors. That's what the requirement is. So when you go to your resume, and if you work in a position where you're working with visitors and you're working with the public, one way you may be able to translate that is to say, interpreted and explained roles, regulations, and procedures to more than 5,000 visitors annually, promoting compliance and ensuring a safe, positive visitor experience. That is how the HR specialist wants to review it, and that is how the hiring manager is expecting the HR specialist to review that to give you ample credit for those positions. If the job announcement requirement says something as simple as collecting fees, don't just put on your resume, I collect fees, or I collect, $20 per vehicle uh, uh, per visitor, or whatever. You have to explain it. One way you can say it would be processed over 2,000 fee transactions, registrations, and admissions annually while maintaining an accurate financial record and adhering to established protocols. Um, get creative as you're doing your job announcement. Make sure to tie that job announcement requirement with the relevant work experience that you have. And again, a lot of this we can have on the back end of this presentation when we actually sit down and maybe do a one-on-one with any unique questions you have about your resume and your experience. Make sure that you're prepared to apply. Way back in step one, we created a profile, we added our work experience, we used the profile. Um, Remember, USA Jobs is the primary repository for not only your profile and all the relevant information in your profile, but it's also the repository for your resume and your documents. So as you upload your resume and documents, make sure to make your resume and documents searchable because over the last 2 weeks, I think I told you earlier I'm going to be going to Utah next week and California here in a couple of months. We as recruiters, we do a lot of resume mining. Okay, what that means is that if you have a profile built within USA Jobs and you have made your resume searchable, if I'm looking to fill a position as a project manager, let's say, and a hiring manager says, Milo, I need a project manager, and here's the states that I need the project manager in. I'm going to go to that resume mining tool that I have access to in USA Jobs. I'm going to look for searchable resumes, and I'm going to look for where the resume says someone has experience in program or project management. You will then receive an email that is auto-generated from USA Jobs, and it says, hey, this is Milo with the Department of Interior. We actually have some positions coming available for program and project managers. It looks like based on your resume and your experience, you meet these qualifications. Please reach out to me if you'd like more information, and we can actually show you the process and where that job may be located to help you get through the process of not only applying but making good use of your time so you can actually get hired into a position. Okay. Only one resume can be searchable at any time. So make sure that the resume that you have searchable is a good one. Your resume will be active for up to 12 months. So be sure to keep your resume updated for accuracy. We've gone through the process on where to apply. Can I apply? Do I meet the requirements to apply? Read through all the sections. If you have additional questions, you can call or write the agency. There's always going to be an email address listed or a phone number that you can reach out to the people that are in charge of the positions that you are applying for. There are people connected to each job announcement, and we're here to help. Be sure to monitor the closing dates and give yourself plenty of time to commit to the process. The assessments can be time consuming. Some jobs, many jobs now do have some additional practice assessments at the end when you apply. Um, those assessments can be a little bit time consuming. Those assessments also require dedicated attention as you're doing them in order to be highly rated. So if you go through a practice assessment and you're trying to do it as, you're cooking dinner or you're changing the oil on your car or you're out on the river fishing and you're just trying to type something up, those practice assessments stay with your application. So take the time and give those assessments as much attention as you can. What happens after you apply? The final steps in the application process happen at the agency. After all the application packages have been received, resumes and supporting documents will be reviewed to ensure that applicants meet the basic qualifications. Each applicant who meets the basic qualifications will be further evaluated on the information questionnaire and the other assessment-based criteria that hiring managers are looking for. Best qualified applicants will be referred to the selecting official. After making a tentative job offer, a suitability and background investigation will be conducted. Then a final job offer is going to be made when the selectee has the security clearance needed to start work. Um, Applicants should monitor their status in USA Jobs, and I can't say it enough, be responsive to inquiries. If a human resource specialist needs a question answered and they send you an email and you don't reply, and then they send you another one and you don't reply, and then a third one comes and you don't reply, sometimes that human resource specialist is going to say, well, wow, they're not replying. They might not be interested in this job anymore. And then oftentimes you'll have to look at the next available candidate, the next best candidate for the role. So be proactive, stay in contact with the agency, and be responsive to any inquiries that were out there. So I know we've covered a lot. It's difficult kind of to do a pop quiz in a section like this, but we're just going to do a quick pop quiz before we hop into the Q&A section. Pop quiz right here. What are the 3 questions that I need to ask about a job announcement? 3 questions that you need to ask are, number 1, can you apply? Super important. Do you meet the hiring path that the hiring manager is looking for? Do I want to apply? Is it the pay I'm looking for? Is it the location that I'm looking for? Would I be willing to, downgrade into a lower GS kind of rating if I needed to? So ask yourself, do I want to apply? And then lastly, am I qualified to apply? Do I meet any specific requirements, additional requirements needed to apply for the job? And or does the position require a positive education requirement to apply for the position? If it's a petroleum engineer job and I don't have a degree in petroleum engineering, I probably shouldn't be applying for it because I'm not qualified. So can I apply? Do I want to apply? And am I qualified to apply? Last question I'm going to ask, pop quiz. Which part of the requirement section am I going to read? And I think I told you this. I skipped over this part, the requirements section, as I was applying myself. And the part that you want to read is all of it. Make sure you read every single piece of the requirements section. So, all of that being said, your Department of Interior journey starts here. Follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, X, follow us because we post a lot of really good information out there. Lastly, if you want to stay connected or if you want to receive additional information, you can always scan this QR code. This is going to allow you to join our talent network specifically to the University of Arizona Global Campus. So join our talent network, connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. And then lastly, shoot me an email. Get my contact information from Werner and Rebecca and Nicole and let them share my contact info with you if you don't take it down on this. As your amazing team at UAGC can testify, I'm here to help and I'll always make myself available. So that being said, I'm going to take a deep breath, Werner. I'm going to let you take the mic and ask any questions you have.
Awesome presentation, as always, Milo. We're so grateful to have you here today. One of the things that really stuck out with me on this that Milo had mentioned several times actually is that he applied 72 times. So the indirect message, tell you directly, don't give up. If you really want to work for federal agencies and here at the Department of the Interior and all the federal agencies under them, that's the indirect message here. And then also, obviously, the clear message that Milo also mentioned is that, obviously make sure that when you're applying, that you truly are qualified for that role. That you need to make those adjustments and show that you are very qualified, but don't give up. I think that's the greatest message that was sent here. And I just wanted to repeat that again and again because, people sometimes get frustrated. They're like, oh, it's just too tough to get in the. No, don't give up. You can do it. So great questions coming out of this. So much out there. One of the ones that I saw right off the bat was, is there an age gap to apply? They've been trying to find a way to use their MBA.
Mhm.
So is there a place, Milo, for someone who comes with a managing background in the Department of the Interior and the agencies?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, there's as far as an age gap goes, there's obviously no age discrimination. And on your resume, you're not going to put, pictures, you're not going to put date of birth, you're not going to put any of that stuff on there. We just want to see relevant work experience.
Sure.
But yes, absolutely with an MBA. I mean, yeah, I mean, I've got it. I've got an MBA. Uh, the MBA is definitely needed, especially for a lot of those program and project manager type of roles, especially at the headquarters level. Not doing a lot of the field work, but actually working inside of a headquarters level. So yeah, MBA is definitely important.
being we have average age, what, Milo, about 31 years of age. So obviously we have the other gamut, maybe we have older students that are
Mhm.
trying to apply. Going back to that portion of the question, is there any age gap or age issues? I know, granted, that's a thing to tiptoe on, but at the same time, I mean, if you got somebody who's in their 60s and they want to apply to something, but
Mhm.
yet they've already retired from this, like us, with the military, and they've retired now,
Sure.
they're looking for their secondary job.
Mhm.
What advice do you give, or how do the agencies look at that? And then can I do something that attaches to that, because you and I being Air Force and all of that, for people that have federal service, how does that work? How does it tie into the federal agencies? I know different federal agencies work different ways, but how can
Mhm.
they bring that into their federal service, please?
Yeah, no, great question. The only time really that you might find where age is going to come into play is, again, it's going to be in some of those specific requirement sections on a job announcement. So I'll give you an example. For our law enforcement positions, with law
Mm,
enforcement, there's a maximum age that you cannot be over to apply for those roles.
understood.
And those are going to be based on some mandatory retirement ages for our public safety professionals. Another one that comes to mind sometimes is going to be wildland fire.
Mm,
And just because of the physicality of some of those wildland fire roles, there are some physicals that go into it, which sometimes could make it a little bit easier. And I'll just, as an example, use it. If I'm 65 years old and I want to be a wildland firefighter, I'm going to have to go through a full wildland fire physical.
fitness. Yeah.
Oftentimes, what's going to be required is going to be much more than what I at that age could actually do, if that makes sense.
Sure.
But there are also some great federal opportunities if you're retired from the military or if you're a prior federal civil servant, you can actually buy back some of your time. So if you're a
Ah,
military member and you want to buy back, say you did 10 years in the Navy
mm,
and you want to buy back that time and add that towards your federal retirement, you can do that. I
oh,
mean, there
wow.
and that's where HR steps in because as you onboard into the agency will actually walk you through that process. The other thing too is, and I don't want to hop on the military thing and stay on it, but if you did a job in the military that directly correlates to the role in which you're going to be doing in the federal government, there
Hmm.
are some additional incentives that the hiring
Ah,
manager can offer. For example, an additional leave category. You can negotiate a little bit of a pay difference. There's just different things, and so yeah, there's a lot of if you're prior federal, prior military, some and even prior federal. Um, I talked about it earlier, like public land corps, different things, or land management agencies. A lot of those things will transition and carry over.
for the people who I know you talked about this earlier, but I just wanted to read because somebody had mentioned it. What
Mhm.
are if you have gaps, let's say in your employment and history,
Mhm.
whether you care for a child, you're gone out of the workforce for 2 or 3 years, how do you recommend when they're applying to put that in the resume and what have you, please?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I just had this conversation a couple weeks ago with an individual who was just getting back into the workforce, and she was saying, I've spent the last 20 years doing A, B, and C, but I can't quantify that onto a federal resume. So what we want to take a look at is there any volunteer activity that you did during that time? If not, just be upfront and honest on your resume and just state, I was a dot 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 during this time. Where you run into problems is that if you have gaps in a resume and you try to extend areas and the hiring or the HR specialist says, okay, Milo said he worked here from August of 2002 until August of 2010, but really, let's just say I left in 2008, but I didn't want to show a 2-year gap.
Mm,
When we call the reference and the reference says, oh, yeah, no, Milo did work here. He was a great worker. He was here until 2008. And the HR specialist says, well, it says here 2010. Well, 2008 is when he left. Then what starts to happen is they're going to start digging more into that resume and they're going to start looking at what they call suitability. Is this individual suitable for a public trust position? So just be honest on there. So if you were out of the workforce and you were taking care of family or whatever the case may be, put it on there.
So for the people, Milo, that apply for the open position, this kind of goes to when you applied and everybody else, the process. When you get fortunate to land a position, how long is there as an average duration to complete the entire cycle? When it comes to getting on board, or how long does it take in general? What can our students and alumni expect if they are being taken a look at for positions?
Yeah, another great question. So I'm going to give a couple of numbers here, and I'm not trying to scare anybody when I say this. Um, the process could take up to a year, and I'm going to give you worst case scenario. You have a lot of positions within the human resources community that have gone unfilled, and so you have these people like myself, these HR specialists that are trying to put jobs out for hire, but then we're also trying to take individuals in to review applications. And then we're trying to get them to the hiring managers to review. And a lot of those hiring managers have left federal service, retired from federal service. So there's a lot of, that's the reason why we're hiring right now is we have a lot of positions we need to fill. So worst case scenario, I would say, 12 months. And I say worst case. Typically, and a lot of it is going to depend on how quick a hiring manager needs this role filled and what the manpower looks like. You're looking at probably 3 to 6 months. Once I finally on my 72nd attempt and I finally did my interview, I was onboarded within 3 weeks because they
Oh,
needed to
wow.
fill the position quickly. So yeah, it can go a lot quicker too. But I would say worst case year, typically I would say from the time you apply, somewhere between 2 to 4 months or 3 to 6 months.
Understood. Yeah, and we hear that a lot from the other government agencies. It's usually a year, so obviously the key here is what indirect messages have patience
Yeah.
and don't give up. Exactly.
Yep.
For older students,
And
and
if
they
I
have,
if I can real quick, Werner, just
of
I
course,
want
of
to say
course,
something real fast on this.
go for it.
There are other options like
Mhm,
direct hire authorities and some of those
mhm,
non-competitive hiring authorities that I talked about earlier. If
uh-huh,
hiring managers really want to fill positions,
mhm.
they will reach out to people like me directly and say, "Hey, Milo, I don't have 3 to 6 months to wait. I need to fill a
Understood.
position like in a
Now,
month or now.
understood.
Do you know anyone?" And this is the reason why, and I left this screen up, Werner. I put these on LinkedIn. I put these via email. I go to my talent network and I'm like, "Hey, I'm looking for an an engineering equipment operator, someone who has a CDL. Do you know anyone?" Boom, I start getting things back. And I get it to the hiring manager. They hire them quicker. So just because I said that long time, hiring managers can use certain authorities to make it happen faster.
Talent network, be part of it.
Yes.
Great message, great message. So the ones that have many years of work experience, if they're an older student, how far back? We understand that it's now a two-page resume for the federal resume, but how
Mhm.
far back, Milo, do you recommend that they go back if they have a lot of work experience?
That's a great question. Put as much relevant work experience as possible. And what I mean by that is if everything that you're doing now is relevant to the job that you're applying for, don't worry about going back super far, especially if far back has positions that are not relevant to the job that you're trying to apply for. So fill your resume up with as much relevant work experience as humanly possible. Um, if that means you have to go back 20 years, go back 20 years. If that means that you can put your current job and maybe your previous job and that's it, and you can fill 2 pages with relevant experience, that's fine too. Because we're looking for relevant experience, not how long Milo has been in the game.
Absolutely, and great advice. It just goes by so quick, Milo. We're literally at the hour
No.
now. So
Yeah.
we're going to wrap up. We have so many questions in there. I can't even begin to tell you. It's obvious that they're very engaged and are very interested in working for the federal government. We're sorry that we couldn't get to all of your questions. We will go back and look at those questions that we have here and follow up. We absolutely appreciate everybody coming. So if you want to connect with the U.S. Department of the Interior and other organizations that are actively hiring, please log into Handshake through your student portal. We recommend checking Handshake, UAGC Connect, and your email regularly for more career services events. A reminder, you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to this recording and information about careers at the U.S. Department of the Interior. And of course, all these amazing 11 agencies that Milo has under him. If you have any questions for our career services team on your resume, cover letter, or job search, please email careerservices@uagc.edu or log into Handshake through your student portal to explore more resources. Please take 1 minute to hang on at the close of this information session. You'll be directed to complete a quick confidential survey. Your responses will guide us in planning future employer information sessions, career fairs, and events. If you're unable to complete it now, the survey will be emailed to you with a copy of the recording. Many thanks again to the amazing Milo at the U.S. Department of Interior for joining us today. We are so privileged to have you every single time. Thank you so much, Milo. Many thanks to you, our students and graduates, for attending UAGC. Thank you for attending this event today, and we look forward to seeing you at more career services hosted events the rest of the year and going into 2027. Many thanks again. Everyone have a wonderful summer and have a great day. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.